But in regards to like organization and structure, what
Mm-hmm.
what would you say your practice routine is like?
Um, okay. Well, I like to split it up into sections. One thing I love to do is, of course, start out with long tones.
Yeah.
And this is great because it builds your embouchure, and of course, it builds you with endurance. And of course, there's different ways of doing it. One way Walter Blandon taught me how to do it is literally just playing. I hope my headset doesn't fall off. Literally playing as long as you can for as quiet as you can, and keeping it so that the pitch is consistent, but you're holding it so that the goal is, if you can hold it till you feel like you're about to die, hold it even more.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you feel like you're about to die, grasp for air and then go straight to the next
Go
note.
right
A
back.
little longer, right? So it'll be something like this. And of course, you hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. But the idea is to master that control. So as you go down, sorry, my dog isn't here. The idea is to master that control so that you can keep the consistency with the pitch and
Yeah.
the air. Because the lower you go, you're going to realize it's going to get harder and harder because the tubing is longer. And then vice versa, when you go the other way, it's going to get harder to control because the tubing is getting shorter, and you have to really control that air with a consistent velocity of speed. I'm telling you, the sax, well, any instrument, but particularly the saxophone, is amazing because you're dealing with physics and you're dealing with sound, but then you're also dealing with vibrations, and it's just,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. The long tones are great to do because it's kind of like a way for you to become one with the instrument and figure out
Right.
how do you get to the center of your sound and make that core foundation in your sound. But then, of
Yeah.
course, that's one step. The other step that I would do is scales, which I'm sure you probably already deal with.
Yeah.
There's um, there's an exercise where you can literally loop the scales, or like if you go up one scale, but then go down, up the next scale,
The
and
next
kind of,
scale.
yeah, there's all kinds of really cool exercises. One book I like, it was a book by Jackie McLean. I can't think of the name right now, but he had a really great book that he released years ago, and I love it because he writes out all these different great scalar exercises to practice and incorporate. But I love to do that daily because it gets your technique together, and it also gets you to be nimble. So once you get over your majors, you do your minors, you do your harmonic minors, and you do your double diminished, and then of course you do all the other scales out there in the world that exists too. But do that every day, and of course with the metronome, I'm sure you do that, right?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, try to make sure that the tempo that you set is good for all of the scales. So then
Yeah.
that way you're able to gradually get faster, because you know a lot of times we cool with F and B flat and E flat, and we rip through it. And then when we get to that C
And
sharp,
then other kids would be like,
we be loving them suckers when we shouldn't be doing that.
right?
So it's always a good practice to make sure if you could do it in one, do it in all consistently at the same tempo, and just work your way up. And I think people hate it because it seems boring, but in actuality, it's the best thing in the world for you to do, because believe it or not, you're building your time.
Mm-hmm.
So then the next thing I would do, which helps with building my time, is I would work on a transcription. anything that I'm particularly working on. Like I love particularly George Coleman. He has this album called Playing the Changes. And there's a song called Moment's Notice he's been doing, and I've been dealing with that, which has been fun because we all know that song, but then it's like his approach to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And then of course the fourth thing I would do, like I was mentioning to you, practicing with the metronome, playing through changes. Because you're training yourself how to build good time and play by yourself without accompaniment. And then also is teaching you, how can I nail harmonically what I'm trying to say without supportive instruments with me? And the best way to judge that is by recording yourself. So you put on that phone, press on a record, set the tempo. Like I was doing this a few months ago on The Night Has 1,000 Eyes. And it was cool because in 1 week, I was able to not just strengthen my time, but then I was able to play around with starting on different parts of the beat when I play. Because then I'm realizing, oh, maybe I need to start coming on the end of 3, or maybe try some phrases coming on the end of 2 or downbeat of 4. And it gives you some ideas to play with so that when you're soloing, you don't get stuck into one way of approaching rhythm.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. And then your time, like for me, I started at one tempo and then I ended up the end of the week, I was like, whoa, this is pretty killing. I feel like I lifted some weights and I could speak clearly.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great way of just practicing playing, getting your language out, being able to speak with your horn, but at the same time, be very clear with your time. And then of course, the fifth, but we're at number 5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The fifth thing I like to do, I love to listen. Mm-hmm. Find stuff that inspires you harmonically and just explore and figure out what's that sound, what's that chord, what's that shape, what's that color, and try playing with it. And watch some videos too while you're at it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.